A sudden explosion, a 5-square-mile inferno, and a 3.2 magnitude earthquake. Russian citizens awoke to this in the early morning of September 18, 2024. Unknown to them then, the depot's largest ammunition had just gone up in flames. But that was not the only casualty that night. With the loss of the Toropets depot, Russia's war aims seemingly also went with it. Situated about 230 miles northwest of Moscow, Toropets is more than 500 kilometers or 310 miles from the Ukrainian border. With just a population of around 13,000 people, the town of Toropets is also very sparsely populated. Because of these factors, the Russian military placed an ammunition depot there. But this was no ordinary depot. The Russian military divides the country into different military districts for command and control. Arguably, the largest and most important military district is the Western Military District, where Toropets is located. This is because most of the Russian forces fighting in Ukraine travel through it to get to the front. As a result, huge concentrations of men and materials are there that have a direct involvement in the war in Ukraine. Because of the vast quantities of ammunition the Russian army needs each day, there needs to be large depots to store this ordnance before issuing it to units involved in Russia's illegal war. This is where Toropets comes into play. Because ammunition depots need to be in isolated areas in case of emergencies, the depot at Toropets was in a perfect location to receive ammunition from other parts of Russia before getting put on a rail car and sent towards places like Belgorod, where Russian forces distribute it to frontline troops. But since ammunition dumps like these need some pretty serious facilities like underground bunkers and tunnels, fire suppression systems, and remote wilderness that can be cut down to act as a natural fire break, there are not a whole lot of places these depots can go. And Ukraine knew that, which is why Toropets presented such a juicy target primed for an attack. Just after midnight, Ukrainian drone operators assembled in their command bunkers in northern Ukraine. Since the war started, drone operators have become adept at launching their deadly payloads without being detected. Because thermal imaging makes soldiers stick out like a sore thumb at night, during the day, fellow members of their drone units armed and carefully hid the drones for use later that night. As the operators gather in their bunker, they get briefed on the Russian threat assessment and weather. The weather that night is calm and mild, with no strong storms blocking their view. Since they have to rely solely on cameras, it is imperative that the operators can see what they're doing. Additionally, Russia's air defenses near the border are pretty dense. They must fly low below their minimum radar height to avoid being spotted and shot down. With their briefing complete, the operators sit at their consoles and begin the journey to the target. Flying around 100 miles per hour at max speed will take several hours until the units reach their target. In the meantime, they weave in and around known Russian air defense networks to make it to their destination. As the drones get closer, they can see Toropets illuminated in the night sky. Due to being so far from the border, Russian commanders have not implemented blackout restrictions to not scare the Russian population. However, this does nothing to ensure that each drone tonight has a clear line of sight of where it is supposed to go. On the ground, sleepy Russian soldiers stare at their screens. Due to being conscripts, they get little training since all the contract soldiers have been sent to the front lines in Ukraine. As a result, their knowledge of how to operate their radars is poor, and their discipline is even less so. Even if they were paying attention that morning, which is doubtful considering the rampant drug and alcohol abuse that goes on in the Russian military, they probably thought the more than 50 drones on their screen were some kind of clutter. But they could not have been more wrong. At roughly 3:46 in the morning local time, the first drone slammed into the complex. Within seconds, dozens of drones found their mark and started fires throughout the base. But that was not all. The Ukrainians later admitted that they were shocked at the damage their drones caused when a series of massive secondary explosions rocked the depot. As seen in footage shot by witnesses, the secondary explosions sent huge fireballs into the sky as the entire 5-square-kilometer depot erupted into a massive inferno. Russian police and military units quickly began evacuating residents. They shut down the local train station and closed schools for the rest of the week. In scenes reminiscent of the evacuation of Pripyat when Chernobyl was melting down, residents were pulled from their beds and told to run as Russian military and civilian firefighters responded to the blaze. Though Russian state media later claimed Russian air defense forces shot down 56 drones, with the resulting debris igniting the fires, the physical evidence says otherwise. According to Western meteorological stations as far away as Norway, they recorded anomalies ranging from 2.0 to almost 3.2 on the Richter scale. These small explosions left a crater more than 90 feet deep inside the depot. The resulting fires were so large they could be seen from space. But what did Ukraine use to cause such massive devastation, considering the depot was out of range of all known Western-provided weapons? Because Western countries categorically refused to allow Ukraine to strike deep into Russia with their weapons, Ukraine has been forced to cultivate its own domestic long-range arms industry. Due to their damage compared to their cost and speed to produce, long-range drones have become a favorite calling card of Ukraine, which seeks to maximize damage with its limited defense dollars. Since the full-scale war started, Ukraine has invested heavily in its arms industry, with some of the biggest strides being made in drone production. With a pledge to produce 1 million drones by the end of 2024, Ukraine is well on its way to its goal. However, the drones used in this attack were no ordinary first-person view drones. At a range of nearly 500 kilometers and attacking hardened bunkers, Ukraine would need a long-range drone capable of packing a huge punch. But thanks to innovations from more than 10 Ukrainian companies solely dedicated to long-range drone production, the country's military has more than a few options. In its most recent announcement, Ukraine said it had developed a drone missile that recorded its first attack at the end of August 2024. However, this report has not been corroborated and, even if true, it is unlikely to be the weapon used, considering it is brand new and the number of drones in the Toropets attack numbered at least 50. There are several candidates Ukraine likely could have used in the attack. The first of these is the UJ-26 Beaver. With its iconic bobtail design and nearly 1,000-kilometer range, the Beaver is a very deadly and cheap weapon for Ukraine. Sporting a roughly 20-kilogram warhead, the Beaver can deal a ton of damage at a low cost. Because of this, the drone has been frequently used to attack faraway targets in Moscow and has reportedly entered mass production. Another likely candidate is the biplane-looking drone known colloquially as the Lord. The Lord, which is based on the smaller biplane model drone the AQ-400 Scythe, is essentially a beefed-up RC biplane with a massive warhead. Despite its large size and slow speed, it has a purported range of around 750 kilometers, well within striking distance of Toropets. The last likely drone Ukraine used to attack the depot is the Sky Ranger Ninja. Similar in shape to the A-22 Foxbat seen crashing into Russian factories and apartment buildings, the Sky Ranger is a newer, better version of it, with enhanced cameras offering a 360-degree view in day or night. The Sky Ranger is optimal to operate in GPS-denied environments. In addition, with its payload consisting of a single OFAB 100 vacuum bomb, this would be the perfect weapon to start massive fires in areas filled with explosives. While we will probably never know the exact types of drones Ukraine used in the attack, thanks to the massive destruction they caused, one thing is for certain. This attack changed the course of the war. For Russia, One of its biggest worries is maintaining its fragile supply lines in Ukraine. As numerous examples have shown, the Russian military is criminally inept at supplying its forces with fuel, food, ammunition, medical supplies, and spare parts. The loss of a major ammunition depot such as Toropets will directly affect battlefield operations in the near term. According to an Estonian defense official, with the amount of Iskander, Scarab, Fab vacuum bombs, and artillery shells, there was around 30,000 tons worth of explosives there. To put this quantity of explosives into perspective, when the U.S. firebombed Dresden in 1945, U.S. planes dropped about 3,900 tons of explosives that night. This means that the attack on Toropets was more than 7 times larger than the Dresden raid. Put another way, the combined explosive output of all that ordnance was equivalent to about 750,000 artillery shells exploding simultaneously. Expert analysis of Russian ammunition usage figures the Russian northern grouping of forces, the ones directly combating with Ukraine's in Kursk right now, will be short on ammo for about 2 to 3 months. However, the ramifications go beyond starving Russian guns and vehicles of ammo. Putin has continually denied or downplayed the effects of the war on Russia itself. He continually portrays it as something going on over there and far away from the average Russian citizen. However, photographs of massive mushroom clouds comparable to nuclear weapons do little to instill confidence in Russian citizens that the situation in Ukraine is under control. Though this event in itself will probably not sway the tide instantly against Putin, it certainly doesn't help his argument that everything is going according to plan in Ukraine. Though the attack may not have long-term effects on the Russian populace, it will have long-term strategic benefits for Ukraine. By demonstrating that its far-flung ammo depots are vulnerable to attack, Ukraine forces Russia to stretch its already thin supply lines. With less ammo and slower resupplies, Russian forces will inevitably slacken the pace of their fire against Ukrainian military and civilian targets alike, which should ease a lot of tension along the lines of contact. But that is not the most important benefit. As Zelensky unveiled in September, he has made a top-secret plan that he wishes to propose to Putin when the time is right. This plan, largely suspected to be a settlement agreement between the two countries, has terms favorable to Ukraine. However, Putin is a bully, and the only thing bullies understand is force. Zelensky must propose these terms when Ukraine is in a position of power. By systematically destroying the means Russia has to wage war, this will set him up nicely at the negotiating table. Bye for now.